Sometimes I think being yourself sounds like the easiest thing in the world. Just don't care about what others think and be you. But when you try to do that in practice, in real life, you realize it's a lot more complicated, a lot more difficult. We grow up hearing who we should be, how we are supposed to show up, and somewhere along the way, we start losing that connection to ourselves. But eventually there may come a moment when you stop for a second and start asking whether the life you are living actually feels like your own. Like when you look at what you are doing with your time, the choices that you are making, and the direction that you're heading, and you wonder if this is really the kind of life that you want to live. And that thought often just slips in without any big announcement. For me, it has happened while I'm eating breakfast in the morning or when I am out walking on my own and not really thinking about anything. Choosing a life that feels like yours isn't a single decision. It's a series of small steps where you keep coming back to what feels true to you. And the more you follow that, the more your life starts reflecting the person that you actually are instead of the person that you thought you had to be. Lately, I've been watching a YouTuber called Eva Zubeck, and I have been really inspired by her story. She studied at the University of Oxford and lived what she called a pretty luxurious and fancy life in London. At some point, she realized that life wasn't what she actually wanted anymore. The career, the routine, the structure, they looked really nice, but inside she felt disconnected from who she was becoming. So she made this radical choice. She left London, left the comfort of the ordinary and started a nomadic life, traveling into remote, wild places where she could finally hear herself again. And today she's living in a tent on a piece of land she bought in Poland. The part that inspires me the most is the way she keeps choosing a life that matches who she's becoming. Even when it looks unusual from the outside, even when comfort and approval would have pointed her somewhere completely different. She says she reached a point where she felt like she didn't have another option. The life that she had before didn't match her anymore, and she couldn't keep pretending that it did. And I really understand that feeling deeply, because honestly, what are we living for if not for ourselves? If I wake up every morning and live someone else's idea of a good, happy life, it feels like I'm missing the point entirely. So the art is choosing the life that is truly yours, even when the world offers comfort, approval, or an easier path. I remember a time when I was applying for study programs I didn't really care about, looking at career paths that had nothing to do with who I am or who I wanted to actually be. Things like cold calling or sales roles. And even though I didn't get actually into those programs, the whole process showed me exactly where I was about to go if I didn't stop. I could picture myself ending up in an office somewhere doing work that drained me, slowly drifting into a life that didn't feel like mine at all. And standing in that moment, I realized it was like a decision point. If I kept going, I would be building a future for a version of me that did not exist. And also in my life, I have had those moments where everything magically clicked, like something inside told me that I was on the right path. Like when I moved abroad, I remember this feeling of the world opening up around me. I didn't have a clear plan being in my early 20s. I wasn't really thinking about like this whole career idea or what I'm gonna do with my life. I was just living, discovering new routines, seeing what kind of person I became when I wasn't trying to fit into anything. And somewhere in that time, I picked up a camera and started making videos. It felt simple and natural, like I had returned to something that I had always been meant to do. And when I later moved back to Finland here in the winter wonderland, and began building my life here, that same feeling was present. I slowed down, I let myself settle, and I allowed my days to match my own rhythm instead of forcing anything. Part 2. Peeling back the layers. We often think growth means adding more to ourselves, more goals, more routines, more achievements. It feels like progress when we take in new ideas or try new systems, and sometimes it really does help. But if we are not paying attention, this kind of growth can so slowly turn into something heavier. Instead of helping us become who we want to be, it becomes another identity we have to carry, another version of ourselves that we try to live up to. And after a while, you start to wonder if you are growing or if you are just adding more and more layers on top of your life without any extra return. When you pay attention to how change actually feels, you start to notice that real change often happens when you remove things, peel back the layers. Sometimes the most meaningful shift comes from letting things fade out of your life. So the other side of growth, I think, is subtractive. You're not trying to redesign your whole life and your whole personality. You're just making space for the person underneath to become alive again. And that person has always been there, just covered by years of trying to be responsible or successful or acceptable or whatever you once thought that you needed to be. When I think about this kind of growth, I think about reconnecting with the things that once felt natural to me, the simple preferences I didn't question when I was younger, when I was a kid. And when I give those parts space again, my life starts to feel familiar in the best possible way. For example, minimalism has helped me with this a lot. Like having fewer things around me makes it much easier to see what actually brings me peace and what doesn't. It's like a gentle reminder of what matters in my life. I notice my thoughts more clearly, and I can tell when something feels right for me or when it starts pulling me in a direction that I don't really want to go or that I shouldn't go. Part 3. Your inner compass. I think every one of us has some kind of direction inside, even if we don't always notice it. It's like this small feeling that you get in certain moments. Something in you saying yes or something in you pulling away, kind of like I explained in the first part. And the older I get, the more I see that these small signals are actually trying to guide us. Many of us move in directions where we think we should go. We chase goals that sound good, and we follow paths that other people approve of. And it's so easy to forget that we also have our own internal direction, the one that doesn't come from expectations, but from how something feels in our body or how our mood changes around certain choices or in certain environments. These are not random, in my opinion. They are small signals of where your life wants to go. And the interesting thing is that your compass does not need you to have everything figured out. It just asks you to pay attention to what feels honest. Even a little bit. Like, you might notice you keep returning to the same ideas again and again, the same way of living or the same kind of pace, or you might notice certain things always drain you no matter how much you try to convince yourself that they are good for you. When you follow those small signals, life starts to feel more like you. You're not pushing yourself in a direction that fights against who you are. You're moving in a way that makes sense for you, even when you cannot really explain it to anyone else, at least yet. And the beautiful part is that your inner compass becomes clearer when you stop carrying things that blur it, like when you stop trying to be everything for everyone, when your life gets simple enough that you actually hear yourself again. Suddenly you can tell when something feels right and when it doesn't. Part 4. Showing up for yourself. I think one important part of being yourself is how you show up for your own life on a daily level. The way you act when there is no pressure from others. The choices that you make when no one is giving you feedback for them. The way you move through your days when it is just you and your values. These things are easy to overlook, but they slowly build the story you hold about who you are. If you often act in a way that matches your values, you start to feel that you are someone who tries to do the right thing, even in very small ways. There are also moments when you notice a gap between who you want to be and how you acted. Maybe you catch yourself speaking with more frustration, more hate than you meant, or saying yes when you really wanted to say no, or brushing something off that clearly mattered to you. When you see these moments and allow yourself to look at them honestly without attacking yourself, they can become very useful information instead of another reason to feel bad about. And that brings me to something that I have been learning slowly, which is the difference between honesty and self-criticism. Honesty is simply seeing what is true in front of you, even if it is uncomfortable. But self-criticism is taking that truth and turning it into like a punishment. Honesty gives you clarity, it opens a door, it helps you understand yourself better so you can move in a healthier direction, and self-criticism shuts everything down. It makes you afraid to look at your own life because you know that you will be hard on yourself if something is not perfect. When you practice honesty without tearing yourself apart, without that self-criticism, you start to build a different relationship with yourself. You begin to feel more open, more curious, and more accepting of the fact that you are a work in progress, just like everyone else. And that is what allows real change to happen, in my opinion. Part 5. The art of being yourself is learning to be with yourself. You would think that spending time with yourself would be the most natural thing in the world, and maybe it used to be, but it is surprisingly easy to avoid these days. Most of us move through our days with so many small distractions, so many small ways of filling space that we don't actually spend much time in our own company anymore. Like the kind where it's just you and your own thoughts for a while. Recently they created the first season of this TV show called Alone Finland here, and I watched all the episodes with a lot of interest, even though I don't really watch a lot of TV. I used to watch the American version years ago, so it was fun to see it finally done in a Finnish setting. It's basically a TV show about people surviving alone in the wilderness with very limited gear, no help and no company. They have to build shelter, find food and deal with the weather and all kinds of situations and see how long they can stay. And of course the environment itself is very challenging, but what always stands out to me is how often the contestants talk about the mental side of things, like how big part of the challenge is just being alone with your own mind. Because for weeks or even months, there is just you. And that is when you really see how important it is to be comfortable in your own company. Because if you don't know how to sit with your own thoughts or understand what kind of pace suits you or listen to your own needs, then it's very hard to actually know who you are. And it's even harder to know what kind of life you want then to build for yourself. To me, being with yourself means you don't abandon yourself the second things start to feel a bit uncomfortable. You don't run to the nearest distraction. You don't immediately shut down whatever comes up inside you. Instead, you learn to stay, even if it's just for a moment. And when you do that again and again, you start trusting yourself more. And watching those contestants on the show, I kept noticing that the people who managed to stay the longest, the people who survived the longest, weren't always the ones with the best survival skills. It was the ones who were not running away from themselves, the ones who actually felt okay being there, who were not spending like every moment wishing that they were back home, even if they didn't like always know what to do. They handled the setbacks always better because they had that peace inside them. They always found a way. They seemed very comfortable in their own company, even when everything around them was so unpredictable. And I think that that's something that we can learn from, even if we are not out surviving in the wilderness. This is actually the reason I go for long runs alone, without music, in places where there are no cars or people, just trees, the cold air, my breath, and the sound of my steps. Because that's really what being yourself comes down to. It's getting familiar with the person who is already there, spending enough time with yourself to understand what feels right for you and letting that guide the life that you are building. I think that that is the real art of being yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to stay kind and meaningful in your own beautiful journey. See you in the next one.